Hey everybody, Kimberly here, and as you might already know, I am an educator. I teach classes at a local college, and I am always really thrilled by a game that teaches me a lesson I wasn't expecting. I love learning things. Now, there is just wonderful general knowledge that's fantastic, or learning things about locations like geography or about themes, but really what I'm talking about here are concepts, like really challenging concepts, things that are multifaceted and complex. And so I really want to talk about 3 games that taught me a lesson that I wasn't expecting, that they did through clever mechanics. So let's jump right in. I want to start with that very first game, and I want to lead off with the lessons that I learned and the things that this game teaches me. So the very first thing is global market, consumer demand, and selling. So this is an economic game that truly taught me about technologies and patents, and also about selling at the right price so you can sell as much as possible and essentially undercutting your competition or your opposition in the game. So the game I am talking about is Smartphone Inc. So in Smartphone Inc., you are the new CEO of a startup, and you want to essentially jump on those new technologies, possibly getting patents out there, and you are trying to reach a global market with your phones. So the very first phase of the game is all about playing these pads, and these pads are essentially going to allow you to design and plan for the things that you want to essentially do in the game. And each round you get to start with this phase, and these are going to be those planning pads, and you will essentially be placing them in ways that allow you to essentially gain the most and not lose. And you're going to have a chance to upgrade these. So the icons on here are going to allow you to essentially see what you're going to do on your turn. So planning is huge. This is kind of like what the game is built around, is the very first stage of planning. Then you're going to set your prices, and this is super, super important. This is where that, economics comes in, where the competition comes in. It's always comparative to what other people are doing in the game. And so it really simulates kind of like that global market, what everybody else is doing and how you have to essentially respond to them. You're going to produce goods that you later sell in the round. You're going to improve your production, which is by getting those upgrades or those improvements that you add to your boards, which is a great way to continually grow. The next one is research, and researching technology is super, super important because as you gain more information, it allows you to do more at a more efficient rate. And again, that's where you might actually come into essentially patenting, or essentially the first one to complete the technology gets to have the patent. But then again, it's easier for other people to get once they are second, not first to something. The next thing is logistics. And then you're going to sell your goods and then wrap up with the final step, receive your victory points. So this is all about building up that Smartphone Inc., which is your company, and really just growing it as fast as possible, gaining as much tech as possible, and putting yourself out there in a global market with this board that goes out in the center. And then, of course, you have to set your prices just right so you can sell again your phones and not lose your interest or your investment in these phones, because you're selling them at too high of a price, and consumers essentially don't want to, and there's a limited number of supplies. So it's just really clever. And I was so surprised again by this game. It has an incredibly boring look. It has a man with some glasses and a beard, and he's kind of looking at a notepad, and you're like, wow, this looks really fun. And it just, the Smartphone Inc. as the title, it just doesn't grab me, it doesn't capture me, but the mechanics here are so strong. And by the time you get done with this, you've not just learned the game, you've also learned more about just the world in general and the way that things work with startups and businesses and consumer demand and really that economic sphere. And for someone who comes from a humanities background, I really appreciate a look into this. I really appreciate the simulation that this offers. And so, big lesson learned. Really, really engaging game. It's about a 60 to 90 minute game, so it's pretty hardy. But it is just one of those games that you want to play again because it has that growth with you understanding how the system works, but also just how maybe your opponents work as well. So the next game that taught me a crucial and complex concept, or multiple concepts within one, is all about global connectedness, citizen displacement, and environmental concerns. And it is a game about essentially bringing awareness to climate change and stopping it. You might have guessed it by now. It won the Game of the Year. The game is Daybreak. Now, Daybreak is a very, very clever cooperative game. I like the production and the way that it's made to really reinforce those ideas of sustainability with our resources and not necessarily adding to the pollution with a lot of cardboard and biodegradable components and resources and tubs and containers and card boxes. But this game is all about players who are working together as a unit. We essentially are cooperatively working together to put a damper or slow down our climate change, the rising temperatures and the pollution, and lack of oxygen in the water, but also adding to that pollution with all of our industrial endeavors. We are a world power, and as a world power, you essentially start with a variety of things. So I've got like China here, for example. There is the emissions, positive and negative. Here we've got these other, so that's energy. And then you've got these emissions. You've got your resilience in 3 different areas. You've got your first one, purple, social, then ecological. And then you've got here infrastructure. And then you've got communities in crisis. And I think for me, that feature of the game is probably one of my favorites because players are going to have a board that essentially says they have a certain level of communities in crisis, and these communities are going to build up going left to right and going down, and it further restricts the amount of cards that you're able to essentially draw. And if a player ever fills all the way up to the end, that is going to essentially be the end of the game. That's one way to lose together. And so you have to be really careful about your communities in crisis and helping other communities and taking on those into your community. So we've got majority world, Europe, United States, and China as the 4 world powers. And players are essentially playing cards into their local area or government, but they are also working together as a whole. And they might be essentially working on these global projects together to gain more benefits. Global offshoring agreement, for example, agricultural best practices, for example, and then maybe loss and damage fund as an example as well. So these kinds of cards are going to be an opportunity for players to work together, and you cannot win this game alone. This is a cooperative game as a whole. And the global connectedness with the communities in crisis and with the board itself, with the oceans and with the heat, I think absolutely taught me that. The environmental concerns, all a part of everything. This is what happens whenever you don't. These are our crises that are going to essentially plague the world. Commitment, disregard, deforestation, for example. And you're going to essentially lose those trees that help you push back the time clock. You've got heat waves, yet again, another example, displaced community symbol. So for me, Daybreak 100% made me feel it. And so whenever you lose Daybreak, you feel like you didn't work hard enough together. And that's sometimes the feeling or the struggle in the real world, but I think this does so in a really clever way. I think the cards with their multi-functions are fantastic. The open table discussion while players are playing simultaneously during their card allocation phase. Really, again, working together and essentially keeping an eye out for your fellow players to see if you can help them in any way possible. Because again, you are not just playing in your personal player area, you extend your reach with the other global communities. So massive, massive concepts that are sometimes hard to see and feel, but Daybreak makes you see and feel all of those things. Okay, it's time for my third game that taught me a really challenging or complex concept that I didn't expect or see coming and really felt it. Like, I thought the mechanics again just paired so well. And this one's all about sustainability, not just financial, but also environmental and with our food source. So this game actually just appeared on my channel very recently. It's called Conservus, and players are essentially going to fish at sea with their boats. They're going to bring their catches to land by either canning them or trading them in for upgrades and opportunities. They might invest in some more boats so they can catch more, and or save to essentially spawn at the end of the round. And then at the end of day, there's going to be this upkeep for boats, and then you're going to spawn all of your marine life. So these are the marine life that we're talking about. There are 4 different colors and different kinds of fishes or shells or crabs or something. And the thing about this that I really, really enjoy is that you don't want to overfish. If you overfish, you leave yourself with fewer of these to then spawn every single round or every single time you take a turn. So whenever you have 2, you'll be spawning, and it has to be of the same color. You'll spawn 1 less than the amount that you had. So in this case, it's 1. But let's say you have 3 that are left in your open sea card. This is your open waters. So let's say you've got 3 that you left in here during the game, and you're drawing from a bag, so this is a bag builder. You are then going to add, again, 1 less than the amount that you have there. So in this case, you're adding 2 because you had 3. So the more you have in the water at the end of your 3 phases of your at sea, on land, end of day, you are going to be having more and more that you take and you put back into the bag so that you can essentially fish for them and either spawn with them, or you can catch them to earn money and to earn other opportunities. So for me, I think this was such a hard fought first game experience of realizing too little too late that I wasn't creating the sustainability in my bag or in the ocean, as they say, to essentially win the game. And so first game I played, I lost. And I think it really just taught me, oh my gosh, I need to have the things that they say left in the bag by the end of the game. And if I don't, then I didn't succeed. And while I had enough money and I had really cool boats and I had great upgrades, I didn't meet the financial and sustainability goals. And so it's really, really clever. I like it. It is essentially a solo game. And I just think it's a lovely, fun puzzle, little luck of the draw with the bag drawing every single time you draw 5. I don't know, it just really took this massive concept of fishing, and I was like, yes, this is absolutely the game for me that taught me that lesson that I just didn't see coming. Yet again, sustainability. So Conservus, really, really cool. The way that they've built that into the game as well are with the cards. These are the upgrade cards, and they really are going to help you get those sea animal tokens back into the bag. So there's one right there. Conservation, funding, and then you will essentially trade in the cards to get this, and then you put them into open water during spawning. Size limits allow us to not fish for the small ones and let them grow up. It's pretty cool. I mean, these are, again, the concepts and the things that I'm familiar with, but they just put it all together into one game, and it's, again, just so clever. Lack of predators, and that will allow you to do that as well. So just some really, really fascinating features, and again, the mechanics are so clever, and they pair incredibly well with what the game is asking players to do. That's what all 3 of these games do for me. Smartphone Inc., Daybreak, and Conservus. Thank you for giving me not just a gaming experience and not just a good game, but a great game that taught me a lesson that stuck with me, that really made me feel the concept, made me feel the theme, made me feel the idea and understand it on a more complex level because of the way the game works, because of the mechanics, because of the round structure, and because of what it asks players to do. So just dynamite experiences, and if you have a chance to play any of these three, I would highly recommend it. Maybe you'll learn the same lesson or similar lessons that I learned when I played them. All right, I will see you later, folks. Bye!